The Yellow Tooth Adventure. Chapter 5.
Larry asked.
How do we start?
T-Sun replied.
Remember when we talked to the green cloud?
He nodded his head. She went on.
We get into our suits and do the same as we did then. We go into the wormhole 7 nanoseconds, stop, and try to communicate. We need to find Admiral Yellow Tooth.
Larry asked.
What about the Bradley?
Admiral Sims suggested that the Bradley remain in normal space.
They could use the time to work on the plasma cannons.
Larry nodded to Dale.
Number 1, you have the con.
Larry teleported aboard the Constitution, and they drove 7 nanoseconds into the wormhole and came to a halt. The team of Commander Trank, Lieutenant T-Sun, Crewman Winters, and Captain Sorensen suited up, exited the ship, tethered themselves to the hull, and attempted to communicate with the UL-10 creatures. 2 of the creatures approached the team showing excitement. Winters and T-Sun reached out with their psi power and contacted the 2 for a better word, dolphins. Larry reached out a hand and sensed, felt, heard.
Who are you? Why are you here?
The team answered.
We are explorers. But we are looking for another ship lost in whatever this place is.
The dolphins replied.
There are many creatures in this tunnel. Many have been here a long time, and others have just gotten here. Perhaps we can help you to find your other, you said, ship?
Larry, Trank, T-Sun, and Winters concentrated on a picture of the Admiral's ship. The dolphins reacted.
This ship we have seen. Follow us.
Back in the ship, as the dolphins began to swim off, David ordered to follow them, maneuvering thrusters only. In a short time, the Constitution came upon a ship. Tasha cried.
Captain, that's not the Confederation!
She ordered.
Tal, hail that ship.
Over the comm came a voice, much like that of Admiral Yellow Tooth.
Ahoy, this is the Flyzing Man-O-War Navigator. Identify yourself.
David replied, This is the USS Constitution of the United Federation Navy. I am Captain David Stevens. We are looking for Flyzing Admiral Yellow Tooth's ship, the Confederation. Have you seen him? The man in the other ship replied.
I'm Captain Snippet Grove, of the Flyzing Man-O-War Navigator. I do not know of a Flyzing Admiral Yellow Tooth or a Flyzing ship named Confederation.
David asked, Captain Snippet Grove, do you need assistance? He replied,
It seems that I'm stuck here. How can you help if you're stuck here also?
David said, As far as I can tell, we can tow you out. I'm sure you can find your way home once you get out of this tunnel. The Flyzing captain was silent for a long time. Then,
Captain Stevens, I am just gonna have to trust you.
But I will defend my ship. David replied.
Understood.
Prepare to be towed. Tasha ordered.
Tractor beam.
The tractor beam reached out and caught the Flyzing Man-O-War, and the 2 ships began to move. Momentarily, they exited the wormhole and released the Flyzing ship, Captain Snippet Grove. Calm seas and fair winds. From the comm.
Calm seas, good luck finding Admiral Yellow Tooth.
Larry called the Bradley.
Dale, everything okay there?
He replied.
You realize that you have only been gone 3 minutes.
The 2 ships suddenly realized that time spent in the wormhole and time-space in normal space was different. Time the crew spent in the wormhole meant the crew was growing older faster than crews that spent time in normal space. David called Admiral Maravich and told the Admiral about the problem of accelerated aging for those who spend time in the wormhole. However, the search for Admiral Yellow Tooth must continue. He also sent the Admiral a complete log of everything the Constitution had done to try to find the Admiral Yellow Tooth. Admiral Maravich replied.
I will establish a schedule for various ships to continue the search for our friend. But our situation is such that we cannot make such a change for the next 6 months. So I'm leaving it up to you whether to keep on searching. What are you going to do?
David replied, I'm going to explain it all to the crew and see how they feel about it. Then I'll report our decision. David called Larry, Tasha, and all senior officers to the ready room. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the issue. When we are in the wormhole, we are aging faster than when we are in normal space. Stella asked,
What is the difference between the wormhole and normal space?
Larry replied.
From the time we entered the wormhole and exited with the Flyzing ship, we spent about 20 hours, and when we exited, the Bradley told us we had only been gone 3 minutes.
So we can ask the computer to give us the exact amount of time we spent in the wormhole and how much time has passed in normal space, Tasha commanded.
Computer, compare the Bradley's chronometer with this ship's chronometer. What is the difference between the two?
Working. The difference is 10,800 minutes to 27 minutes. Every 27 minutes in the wormhole is 1 minute in normal space.
Everyone was silent, then O'Reilly spoke.
Captain, we are crew, all aging at the same rate. We are families, all aging at the same rate. We are all living the same lifespan, no matter normal space or wormhole. The majority of those people who mean anything to us are aging at the same rate because we are all right here.
David considered the thoughts of the others and asked, "How do you all feel? Continue the search or not?" Larry said,
Dave, I have my own ship to think about. What O'Reilly said is right on. But my ship has a different mission. I'm going to have to go back to the Bradley. This is your problem.
Everyone was silent. Then David said, "Larry, go home to the Bradley." Larry left and went back to the Bradley. Tasha asked.
What say you?
Every voice in the room answered, "Let's find the Admiral." David said, "Go to your sections and talk to your people. We will meet again in 5 hours, right here." The unanimous consensus among all the crew was that they had a job to do, to find Admiral Yellow Tooth, and they had better get with it. No matter what, we have the people that mean the most to us with us, our spouses, our children, and our friends. Yes, we may age faster in the wormhole, but the richness of our lives is not diminished in any way. As Tasha put it,
Let's find the Admiral.
David was very proud of his crew and ordered the ship back into the wormhole 8 nanoseconds, bidding the Bradley adios. 8 nanoseconds in, the ship came to a stop. David called down to the sensor lab, "Kathy, anything?" She replied.
Captain, you won't believe what I see.
He interrupted, "Oh, I believe I will. We've rescued some very different people here. What do you see?"
Captain, it's a tall ship, a 3-masted heavy frigate. It looks like the USS Constitution that's moored in Boston Harbor. There appears to be about 340 men aboard, in some kind of stasis.
David turned the view screen onto the ship and read USS Constellation. His brow furrowed. That's old Ironside's sister ship. They thought she was broken up in 1853, but here she is, Tasha said.
What shall we do, sir?
He answered, "I guess we teleport all those men aboard, take the ship in tow and take them home. After that, it will be up to the Navy to deal with these guys, 700 years out of time." They teleported the crew of the Constellation to the Constitution 12 at a time, and security took these men to a cabin and locked them in 3 men to a cabin. David appeared in each of the cabins as a hologram and spoke to the men, "Gentlemen, I am Captain David Stevens of the USS Constitution. We have taken you aboard our ship to take you home. We will tow your ship and set you all in Boston Harbor in about 10 days. Afterward, we will advise the Navy of your return. We hope and pray that you will live out your lives in peace and security. Calm seas and fair winds." David asked to speak with the captain of the Constellation. "Captain, things are going to be very strange when we get you home. I have called Admiral Maravich, and he will arrange something to care for you and your crew." Captain Smalley replied,
Thank you, Captain.
Great care had to be observed because the wooden ship was not as strong as a steel ship. The Constitution enclosed the Constellation with her shields and drove home at UL-5. David apologized to Captain Smalley, explained the situation, and told him it would take 20 days to get home. He tasked 10 male ensigns to present classes to the crew of the Constellation to bring these sailors up to speed on their situation when they arrived home. Captain Smalley suggested that his crew could present some boxing demonstrations and perhaps several prize fights for both crews' entertainment. The boxing exhibitions and the prize fights were seen as entertaining, and many from both crews attended. One burly sailor, a chief petty officer, from the Constellation challenged any man from the crew of the Constitution to a fight. At first, he had no takers, but then David accepted his challenge. Both men wearing boxing shorts stood in the ring and took the referee's instructions. Then the bell rang, and David and Petty Officer Jordan approached each other and began to trade blows. The fight was set to go 10 rounds, and at the end of 10 rounds, the judges decided that the fight was a draw. The 2 men saluted each other smiling, and that, as they say, was that. The crew of the Constellation was slowly introduced to female members of the Constitution's crew after stern warnings and classes on acceptable behavior in the company of the fairer sex. The crew of the Constellation was always courteous, well-behaved, and somewhat awed at the idea of women and men being members of a ship, the same ship. The trip from the wormhole to Earth took 20 days. It was a quiet trip with no delays. Admiral Marovich had arranged for the reception of the USS Constellation and her crew, arranging that the Constellation become a museum ship at the San Francisco shipyards, fully manned by the present crew as active duty members of the U.S. Navy, intending that the Constellation participate in as many tall ship reviews as possible. On the way back to the wormhole, Stella and Tasha asked David why he fought the petty officer to a draw when they knew he could have flattened the petty officer the first 10 seconds. David replied, "I needed the exercise. He was actually a skilled boxer. Besides, neither of us was really keen on being hurt or hurting each other. It was for entertainment." At the wormhole, they met with the USS Omar Bradley. Larry called.
Dave, Admiral Marovich assigned the Bradley to assist in the search for Admiral Yellow Tooth. How far do we need to go in this time?
We just pulled the USS Constellation out from 8 nanoseconds in and took her and her crew home. That ship had been reported to have broken up in 1853. I guess just another cover-up for an unknown disappearance. Larry suggested.
Shall I go in 10 nanoseconds, and you 9?
David thought, let's stay together for a couple of trips. If we can't find our friend, the Admiral, we can split. Larry asked.
Dave, don't you trust my spacemanship?
David replied, we went through the whole problem with the Archons and the Admiral is our Admiral. You know that he is a skilled spaceman. I just don't want you to have to look for me or me to look for you. If we stop for too long, we will fall into some kind of stasis. The people and creatures we have rescued were like I was when I was in cryosleep, except they're not on cryosleep. Larry said.
You know, we should check on the rest of the Admiral's fleet. Let's see what Commodore Bluetail has been up to.
David replied, good idea. Let's go through before we do the next rescue. Tasha, take us to the De Vega system, David commanded. On the wormhole's other end, the Bradley and the Constitution faced a fleet of Flyzing ships, seemingly dead. David called, Kate, scan those ships. Talk to me. Catherine replied.
Only one of those ships has any atmosphere. And there are only 7 ships.
Larry called.
Dave, one ship is missing.
He replied, we figured that out. One ship has an atmosphere. Let's check it out. Tasha jumped up.
I know just the bunch I want on my boarding team.
David sighed. Okay, go. Larry called again.
I guess I have to let my first officer take a boarding team, oh well.
David replied, yeah, Dale and Tasha need the experience. They're good officers, they'll do okay. Aboard the one ship, Dale and Tasha found 3 living Flyzing spacers, 2 able spacemen, and 1 lieutenant. They were barely alive. They were teleported to the Bradley. David and Larry told Dale and Tasha to download the ship's computer and return. Then the 2 captains asked to speak to the lieutenant. Lieutenant, what happened? In a weak voice, the lieutenant told the story of a sneak attack. Judging by the attacker's description, the same race challenged the Constitution on their first trip into the De Vega system. They were overwhelmed quickly, and only the 3 of them survived. Larry asked,
where's the other ship? There were 8 of you.
The lieutenant replied,
the Commodore ran out on us. He jumped into the wormhole and escaped.
A close inspection of each ship found a small bot hidden on the outer hull. The bot had cut a hole in the hull and drained the atmosphere. The one ship had the good fortune that the bot had chosen a heavily armored section of the hull. However, it had disabled the ship's engines. David and Larry ordered constant vigilance out to a mile from their location. According to the lieutenant, the attackers had sneaked up on the fleet by approaching at a sublight speed. As the 2 USF ships continued their investigation, Catherine called.
Captain, we have about 6 ships sneaking up on us.
David's reply was, oh good. Shields and weapons powered and ready. David called Larry and alerted him, but he was just as ready. Catherine monitored the bots as they tried to get beyond the shields, but David ordered the teleporter to bring a bot in and asked O'Reilly to examine it, to turn it into an offensive weapon for the USF ships. O'Reilly found a system override that he could remotely program to attack the attackers. David asked O'Reilly to override the bots on the Flyzing ships to attack the oncoming attackers. Meanwhile, David hailed the attackers, attacking fleet, stand down or be destroyed. In return, he heard,
do your worst.
Then, suddenly, over the comm, David heard,
Captain, we are losing atmosphere. They've turned our boats against us.
David laughed out loud, that's my worst, turning your own junk against you. Surrender or die. David heard,
damn you. We will not surrender.
David shrugged, well, at least you're not cowards. We'll let your people know that you died with honor.
You don't know where our home world is.
David responded, when you're dead, we'll just board your ships and download your computer. Then we'll know everything we need to know. The attacking fleet turned tail and ran. Larry asked,
Why did you egg them on?
David answered, I just wanted to get rid of them. Well, let's go back in and try to find the Admiral. 3 nanoseconds in, and both ships came to a stop. Larry called to his sensor lab, Joyce, see anything? He heard her reply,
Just the dolphins.
Then,
Captain, I see something. I just can't believe it.
Larry called.
Honey, what is it?
She replied,
It's a Cerident ship, just like the one we encountered when our engines failed.
Larry called David.
Dave, I'm going to tow the ship out and let it go. It's a Cerident ship.
He replied, like the one you had that Mexican standoff with? Larry replied,
Judging by the markings on the ship, not like that ship, but the same ship.
David replied, okay, we'll stop another nanosecond in. The Bradley's tractor beam reached out and gently began to tow the Cerident ship out of the wormhole. Upon reaching the Gavrigan end of the wormhole, the Bradley released the other ship and waited. Then Larry heard.
Captain Sorenson? Is there gone?
Larry replied,
No, we found you in the Gavrigan wormhole in a stasis condition. We towed you out to normal space. Are you able to find your home world from here?
There was a long pause, then.
Yes, we can.
He responded.
Good, then we will be on our way.
Then, shall we meet at the end of the year, as we said?
Larry replied.
Yes, but you must reset your chronometer. You and your clock were in stasis. Your chronometer is slow. Until next time, arrivederci.
The Bradley turned to the wormhole and drove in all the way through, then turned again and drove in 4 nanoseconds. Upon halting, they saw the Constitution and the Confederation. Admiral Yellow Tooth appeared on the view screen.
Captain Sorensen, friend David said you would be coming along. Now, maybe we can get out of this damn wormhole.
David chimed in, I'll tow the Confederation out to the Gavrigan end of the wormhole. Then we can stop and tell each other our adventures. Let's get out of here.